You got Nike.
And
I hate to say it, Adidas. You got Under Armour. Like you got all these
Crazy.
major Intel. It breeds sports here in this city. I mean, you got the MLS team. You got the NWS Portland Thorns. You got the new WNBA team that's been just given an open franchise. So a lot of exciting things here. I think the NBA would behoove itself to even allow or even let it even be a thought to be able to move this team and not have it continue to blossom and grow with the right ownership group. No Free Lunch is presented by T. Rowe Price. The information provided on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified financial and or legal professionals before making any legal or financial decisions or investments. Cool. What's up, my guy, Chris? How are you?
What's happening? How we feeling?
Man, no complaints, boss, man. I'm excited about this conversation. We're about to have some fun discussing the basics of team ownership. So let's just dive right into it. From your perspective as a venture capitalist, what are some of the things that you look at when you're identifying general businesses, but also when you're starting to get in sports? And I'm going to set the stage real quick because a few case studies have been the Lakers just this past June sold for $10 billion. Astronomically a massive price. Then you got the Celtics at like $6.1 billion. And prior to that, you got the NFL team and the Washington Commanders at $6 billion a handful of years ago, or a couple years ago, excuse me. So again, how do you identify team ownership in the basic terms?
Yep. Well, look, I think, to start it off, the most important thing is, you're buying an asset that is one of the most treasured, assets of all time, sports teams and, buying leagues and, the allure of going from being a kid watching your favorite football team to having the opportunity to then purchase it. It's always like a lifelong dream. It's also, a very small number of opportunities that even just to be able to purchase things like this, and they don't often come available as much as well too. And so, like you said, from the Commanders selling for $6 billion, like you have to kind of have all the stars align perfectly for these opportunities to really come in place. And oftentimes, even if you think about how we see the world of venture capital and investing, you have to kind of find out where that deal is available and evaluating what your purchase pricing is, especially with what happened with where the current state of the business is and where you see a potential upside. I spent 8.5 years in the Bay Area, and I got a chance to spend a lot of time with Joe Lacob and his sons and the whole team. And he actually was a previous venture capitalist, and to see kind of how he took and saw the Golden State Warriors as, I remember, when I first moved to the Bay, people were trying to give courtside tickets. Nobody wanted to go to the game.
Baron Davis, after Baron Davis, it was the Warriors for nobody.
Nobody wanted to go, right? But then, but taking that mindset of, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing even with the next generation of owners and the people that are even trying to get into the business, and and specifically just kind of double tapping on what the Warriors is being a great example of, is being able to kind of take that business mindset and the venture capital perspective and applying that to a team. You can really see the monumental change in valuations, the going from being in the Bay Area in Oakland to now having the Chase Arena, and seeing just the amount of influx in media dollars, which is always one of the most important components that kind of come into this. And so, and that's kind of how we view investments too, especially when you're getting off in the early stages. Oftentimes they look like a bad idea, and good ideas look like bad ideas, but you have to always evaluate the things that nobody else sees. And so I think that with Joe, he had an earned secret in terms of knowing how to actually, see companies kind of go from 0 to 100 and and take the things that he knew that could be successful. Also bringing in amazing talent, and what happened with Steph, and then bringing on the whole roster of the teams of players to really help kind of take this to the next level. Now you buy low, sell high, and you see the valuations of companies like that continuing to change. Good friend of mine, but even more so, a super respected person that we should have a follow-up conversation on this is with Magic,
Yeah.
Magic Johnson, and what he's done with the Dodgers, the LA Sparks, Los Angeles FC, and most recently Washington Commanders.
Commanders. Yeah.
Understanding, hey, this is and not only is he investing into these companies, but into these entities, but they're all winning championships too, which is so that
Which is
he's got
insane.
the ultimate secret sauce from there.
So let's go back a little bit, because I want to talk a little bit about cap tables. And you mentioned Joe Lacob, and I've been able to spend time with him and understand kind of some of the things that they've been doing with the Warriors to create their success. But probably a person I'm closer with who is on that same cap table, and Peter Guber, who is his second governor from that perspective, if I'm not mistaken, of the Warriors, and is considered a minority owner, but is well off on his own from that perspective. How do you look at it from a standpoint of saying, all right, I'm an owner in this team. How do I evaluate saying, hey, I want to be on this cap table, and at what level, and how then does that work from a perspective of distributions and monetization as things come together? If somebody decides to sell, or you look at the Warriors, I can't imagine Mr. Lacob and Peter Guber selling anytime soon. So how are they continuing to receive benefit from that ownership?
Well, look, I think, like you said, teams rarely go public. And so you're going to need to buy in into these private deals. And that often means super high minimums to get into large franchises. It's $1 to $5 million checks for minor league teams. But there's always, strategic capital that can always kind of come into the space. And so, I think that there's a lot of different avenues. But kind of what you said is that, the biggest thing is just being able to get into these entities when, valuations are decent prices. But now as the world continues to evolve, it's very hard to tell what is that new version of a quality price. And a couple podcasts ago, we were talking about like Bitcoin, right? And like, people thought it was expensive at 50,000. They think it's expensive at 100,000. It's at 120,000. People still think it's expensive. It's going to keep on going and going, and you're going to just so the bar continues to change as times evolve and as you think about the future.
But let me stop you there. Is that a form of scarcity? Because being an owner in the NBA, you're one of 30 teams. In the NFL, you're one of 32 teams from that perspective. They're not really just saying, hey, here's a new team right off the bat, although there are conversations about new teams and expansion teams coming into the fold.
Exactly. Well, I mean, Bitcoin, there's a finite amount of tokens that are available to purchase. Same thing with the NFL and the NBA. And, they're having some really good, interesting conversations about, like you said, on the expansion teams that might just happen. And when you see those finally go up, I mean, it's not going to be at 2010, 2012 prices. I wouldn't be surprised what the number is going to be on when Vegas comes. And it's not just the team itself, but it's all of the attractions, all the entity, all the sales, all the media rights, what F1 did to Vegas. You saw how that impacted the city. You saw how that. So it's a sum of all its parts that really kind of comes into these things when you're thinking about it. And as an investor, this isn't oftentimes your first thing that you want that you're going to write your chip into, and you gotta have money in order to make money. And I think that but these are people's lifelong dreams and goals that have gotten them into this point where now they can go play in these leagues. And I do think that it is a long-term process when it comes to really generating real value. And if you look at some, how long did the Bus family hold for on the Lakers? Like how long did until you started changing ownership with Celtics? Same thing with the Commanders. And so these are, I mean, you'd have Jerry Jones as has his hands held down as tight as he can
Right.
on them Cowboys, and there ain't no way a number is gonna get him to pull anytime soon. And so, but I think that so that those are a lot of those are majority investors, right? So then you do think about, okay, from a smaller term strategic investor, you're starting to see PE now start to come into the space, which is going to be super exciting. You're going to see, former athletes, Serena and Venus most recently just invested into the Miami Dolphins.
Yep.
My homies Katie and Rich, they've been doing a lot of stuff investing. They think that they just did PSG. They've been doing a lot of stuff in pickleball leagues and investing outside in traditional spaces, what they're doing with the boardroom. And so you're seeing, and it's not just from in general, just investing just from an cash dollar standpoint on what we're going to be able to put in, but you're also kind of seeing the strategic value that you can get alongside that, whether it's network, whether it's influence, whether it's expanding your brand and using it as a strategic use case. I think like even one of my friends, Alexis Ohanian, what he's been doing, he just created and saw that there was a demand for track and field to really take off. And so what he did with Altos in terms of just really kind of creating a dynamic experience around track and field that incorporates media and entertainment and high visibility. And so, I think that there's so many worlds that are evolving, and I think the same way as we've seen the game change, like within basketball, or the game change within football, even baseball has started to become way more exciting. I think that the business behind these games are equally going to change, and you're going to see people moving at a much more rapid pace in terms of really thinking about what the future is going to hold.
What I want to understand is, what does it take to be a minority owner, let alone a majority owner? And let's just use the Portland Trailblazers, my hometown team, as an example. We're saying probably most likely at minimum $4.5–5 billion. Let's just say $5 billion and upwards of 10 if they are seen as the same caliber as the Lakers. Well, right now they're probably not there, but they're somewhere in that particular range.
They just got Dame back, so
Yeah, they did get Dame back, so there's excitement for that. I don't know if he's going to play this upcoming season, but we'll see. But what does it take to be a minority, let alone a majority, at this stage from a dollars perspective? Because you said, you gotta have money to make money.
You got to have money to make money, and I think that now, like you're seeing new brands start to come up that can create SPVs. I think that's what most recently happened with the Atlanta Hawks.
Chris, you mentioned SPV. Will you break down for the people what the meaning of SPV is?
So yeah, an SPV technically is called a special purpose vehicle. It normally lets a group of athletes, entertainers, family offices, or funds really just pool all your money together to then buy into a team as one unit and as one entity. So if we wanted to create the No Free Lunch SPV and we get together 10 people to all put in $100,000, and now we have $1 million, and then we can take that $1 million and then go put it into investing into our next big startup or our next big sports franchise. And so it makes it's just a simple way just to make it so to group investors together easily under one clean item under the cap table. So imagine if you had 50 people in this SPV, you don't have 50 people under the cap table. It's just No Free Lunch LLC. And so that makes it super simple. And then it kind of, imagine if you could only have 10 people invested into the cap table. So sometimes there's league limits on individual ownership percentages.
Yep.
So you could have one LLC that then would kind of have 50 people, but because you had it under this one entity, it doesn't account for the 50 people. And then it provides just clean, structures when it comes to voting rights, profit sharing, different types of governance, and then I guess the most important thing, just as you think about things in the future, it just makes it easy to kind of raise capital from LPs without requiring everyone to work directly with the league.
Yeah.
So you can have, if you are are running this SPV, everybody just comes to you, and then you
Mhm.
do all the work of trying to get everybody in. And once you get everybody in and all the checks are wired, now you're the one that then just goes in and talks to that league or talks to the owner in order to invest, as opposed to having 50 cooks in the kitchen. You're the one that, as the managing partner or the GP of this special purpose vehicle, that then can then say, okay, this is how I'm gonna put my chips in.
Man,
So
I love the ring of that. No free lunch SPV.
come
Like
on, hey, you never know. Let's athletic. Go ahead and go. Let's
that.
sign something up where you can do some test experiments.
The New York Times will be our seed funder of that one.
They got some. They got some cash now.
Yeah, I think they got a little bit of cash,
They
so
got most of
we
that,
can
they,
yeah.
they like sports. So
Yeah,
we should if you see a franchise start coming out of this, you know where it started.
exactly, no question.
My friend Will Packer just recently is an investor, and they accumulated a great group of investors and strategics in Atlanta. So
Mhm.
it's not just saying, "Hey, I'm going to put my own chips in and just let it be me." Sometimes you can establish strategic groups in order to kind of get a chip in. The valuation is always based off of whenever there's a new investment or there's a buyout, and that's when the share price per shares really changes, and then you can really see a lot of those dynamics really starting to come into place in terms of, okay, well, this was a money making opportunity versus this was more so me just leveraging it for other assets. But then, say if I had a wine and spirits company and I wanted to have to partner with Madison Square Garden, and maybe I can invest into one of the teams and then have that be a strategic place for me to now have distribution for my other products, right? And so,
And
um,
it's funny you bring that up though, because if I'm not mistaken, it's the current owners of the Boston Celtics that are selling and Michael Jordan have Sincora together. And so now they have the ability to distribute Sincora tequila through their stadium and their venues and things that they're doing. And I can imagine when Michael was a part of the Charlotte Hornets that he was being able to do that as well. And I was just in Greece at the Jordan Board of Governors or Board of Greatness, and Sincora was everywhere from that standpoint being distributed at the hotel. So it's interesting that you bring that up, but I want to go back to, you mentioned SPV, special purpose vehicle. What are some of the groups that are out there that which you would say that you know of that are creating those and of quality SPVs?
there's a few that are really starting to come into place.
Hmm.
I think like one I would say is this group called Redbird Capital. And so
Jerry Cardinal.
yeah, there you go. Shout out Jay.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
they did what AC Milan. They
Hmm.
had Fenwick Group. They actually co-created the XFL with Dwayne
Right.
Johnson.
Yeah,
Arctos Sports Partners.
yeah.
They are stakeholders in the Warriors and the Kings and sports teams like the Cubs and Dodgers. And so these are all approved by the NBA and the MLB in terms of having really big positions from there. I mean, those are two huge ones. I mean, Josh Harris's group is known. They've done a lot of work with the Sixers, and so I would kind of put them into the space. And then you have things that are more so focused, and it's not just NBA and the NFL, but also when you're thinking about Premier League teams like what Latitude, they used to be called Inner Circle Sports.
Okay.
And so they've done expansion bids for the Major League Soccer teams, and they've done Premier League teams. And so there's a lot of groups. There's a group that used to be called Blue Owl Capital. That was one of the groups that really was working very closely with the Hawks. Mark Cuban just put together a
Mhm.
project
Yeah.
with one of my homies in Atlanta, Rashawn Williams, and they got a
Yeah.
great,
I just
so
talked to Rashawn about it the other day too.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And so they've been doing a lot of fun things in terms of kind of culminating groups and getting people access and exposure into this. And so,
Mhm.
I think that it's exciting from an investment standpoint, and it's a 1,000% becoming, an asset class, and it gets people excited. And when you look at your portfolio, yeah, you can say I have stocks and bonds and I have crypto, but like, what's a better thing than going to saying, let's go to the home opener of one of my teams that I get a chance to own. So
You mentioned Arctos to Sixth Street Capital to Breadbird Capital. Are these groups allowing everyday people or only a select amount of people? How do you get access to them and be able to participate in those particular pieces? Because I think that's what a lot of people want to be able to have. And then also, it's like, does that limit my risk? Do I have to deal with capital calls coming through that, or how does that all work?
the downside is that you have someone else that's kind of doing the day to day, and so but you don't get a chance to have that much exposure, right? So like if
Mhm.
you have a controlling stake, then you have like, that's like over 50% of ownership, which is like
Yeah.
a lot of people that we've been talking to. That's when you get to talking about that have made these large sales. That's decision making power. You can hire and fire different executives. You have voting rights when it comes to the leagues. And as a minority stake investor, like, you don't have that voting control. Like, it's more passive. It's very much more like an LP check into a
Mhm.
PE fund, and you could still get special rights. Like, maybe you can get a board seat depending on who you are, or have a first right of refusal. But it's a much more passive investment strategy. But the thing is that you still have skin in the game,
Mhm.
which 99.9% of people don't have any exposure to. And then there's just times when you can just flat up buy the team in general, and then really with a much broader strategy, which is what you saw happen with Wrexham. And
Mhm.
knowing, saying, okay, well, look, I don't have soccer or football, but like, I know media and I know entertainment and I know how branding works. And if I can take all these pieces and then put it into a beautiful package that while assembling an amazing team that can then build this thing up, like, I know if I get from one league to the next, that's a valuation increase in terms of what the actual teams is going to be based off of. And so now you have to hit those milestones, and then being able to draw attraction
Yeah.
and get people to want to come to the league. And oftentimes, very similar to as an investor, like, if you're working with a top VC firm and they invest into your company, what happens is that now that de-risks a little bit of is this company going to make it or not, which then allows for higher quality talent to feel more secure knowing that they're working with a company that's going to make it to the top, which then attracts more high quality talent. And then you kind of have that network effect that really happens on the investing side. But then if you apply that same thing to ownership, when Tom Brady said he was going to start working with the Raiders, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm a QB, like, I want to go where I can sit down and have one-on-ones with Tom.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting concept, and I love that you brought it up from a perspective of Tom Brady is obviously an owner of the Las Vegas
Mhm.
Raiders,
Yeah, yeah,
also
yeah,
the Aces that are there
yep.
in Vegas, but then also he has a soccer team overseas. And having been around Tom, spend time with him as a teammate and whatnot, and how he's able to help other young men and women grow in their own particular spaces in the world of sports. that's where I've envisioned myself as well, from being a potential team owner to some capabilities, because one of the reasons why I also looked at the NWSL team here in Portland, the Portland Thorns, is because they've got one of the best girls in the entire world, and
Mhm.
wanting to sit there and be able to help her. One, when I look at their facilities and I look at the things that they're afforded, it is not even an eighth of what we have in the NFL from that perspective. So being able to provide those modalities, those different things that they can grow with over time, but then also the structure and some of those different pieces that I've been afforded to be able to pass that knowledge along, like that's a
Mhm.
fun and exciting piece. And seeing that turn into wins, then into championships. I mean, and they're already winning right now without all those different particular pieces. So imagine if you start to implement some of those creative aspects of what we're able to have in the high level sports. I'm not saying they're not high level. It's just that there's a huge discrepancy of what's being afforded to the NBA, the NFL compared to the NWSL, the WNBA from that perspective, aka why they've been wearing these shirts during their All-Star saying, pay us what you owe us.
Yeah, I hope it happens.
Chris, what do you think about these other leagues, as in Love Volleyball, League One Volleyball, and then also like pickleball? What's your opinion on those? And especially from, they're so young and they're in their infancy stages of getting to either be successful or not be successful. So how would you look at those and investing in those type of opportunities at this stage?
Personally, I still think it's early in terms of seeing where this thing kind of pans out. And I actually am. I got turned on to padel when I was down here in Florida, and so I
Mhm.
really have enjoyed that sport just because it kind of more so aligns me to tennis.
Okay.
But I think that there's still a lot of opportunity. The ability for franchising opportunities, like in the Major League Pickleball team, that they were going for six figures, up to seven figures just a few years ago, and so and same ways you can rinse and repeat. The media rights and being able to kind of make it more engaging and kind of consumerize this opportunity. Um, I think that's a really big opportunity. I think the thing you guys just got to keep in mind is that unlike the NFL or the NBA or the MLB, there's all these different types of pickleball leagues. So I think like I can think of at least three of them. I think it's like the Major League Pickleball League, the Pro Pickleball Association, and I think there's one more. I'm like, so it's like everyone's trying to be the one, and maybe there should be some type of like conglomeration. It's still early to tell, but the beauty of this is 10 years ago, nobody was talking about these sports, and now you're seeing new things come into place. And so
So
I like all types of innovation.
so let me ask you this specific question then. I'm giving you a blank check.
Mhm.
What are you investing in from a sports perspective?
You already know my dad would be the happiest man in the world if I had unlimited Eagles games tickets.
Hey, I mean, I've heard they may be opening some things up over
Hey,
there.
if I had a blank check, if I had a blank check, uh, I actually would. I mean, personally, for my family, I would go Eagles. But if I
Okay.
was thinking about it from a business perspective, like I would be knocking on Adam Silver's door every day with a blank check, telling me when one of these next two expansion teams, are coming out. Because I would literally, it'd be one of the most fun things I could imagine is starting a team from scratch, and it
Okay.
feels like
And that's your why, because you want to start it from scratch, or is
for
it is
sure.
or is it also part of where that expansion team is located?
Well, absolutely. I mean, if Vegas would be, that's literally a home run.
Hmm.
Like it would. I don't know. Personally, I think
So
having
you
a
saying
team.
you starting on third and a half base?
If you already start on third and a half base, all you got to do is press go, and that thing just.
Okay.
So and look, look, you see, I mean, you hear. I haven't talked to anybody specifically about it, but like that, I think that is going to be a hot ticket. And the second that thing opens up, it's going to already be lights out in terms of record-setting valuations. And but I think infrastructure-wise, I think the city itself, I think what I get a chance to go to a lot of the Raiders games and the energy and not just for people from Vegas, but like the amount of people that travel in and out of Vegas every day.
Yeah.
Being able to start a team from scratch and design the logo and the brand and the ethos and the energy, like, and to be an
Every
owner
team
of
has been
that.
successful there. I mean, you look at the Raiders, as you mentioned. You look at the hockey team. You look
Mhm.
at the Aces, and
The
it's
A's
now
are on the way.
the A's exactly are about to be on the way. So, and I think MLS is close to being looked at to open up there as well.
Absolutely. So I
Yeah.
think it's a great place. I won't get into taxes, but I think that's also something to keep in mind. And from a
For sure.
structural standpoint, so if you think about how far your dollar can grow, that's also something to keep in mind. But I just think I love the NBA. If I was 6 feet two, maybe we would be having a different style of conversation. But I'm here now, and so I still can hoop
Yeah.
whoever wants to get some smoke.
Yeah, for sure. Hey
Oh
man, I
man,
used to say the same thing. And people are lucky I'm not 6'6", 6'7", because I'd be out
right?
there dunking on
We,
cats.
we already nervous. We already don't want to touch you, man. Would you? You already got it. If you back us down, we're just like, okay, you got free points. You got
Hey
it.
man, I want it. I want it. I'm
I
praying my
know.
boys get to that 6'8", 6'9", and then I can live vicariously through them.
Look, if I put my money that their genes are in good hands.
Yes, yes. Especially if they follow in their mama's footsteps, because she was a basketball player of the family. So
I mean, like, look, you've seen the world of sports both professionally and from ownership side, and you've seen the game. Like, I'm curious, like, if you had a blank check, or if you were thinking about different industries, like what industries and what sports would you be curious or want to put your chips in, and where would you want to stay out as at the same time too?
yeah, I think for me, if I'm looking at a team to invest in, or I'd love to get multiple teams, but let me just keep it to one. And especially with the current times that we're at, I mean, I'd
Hmm.
be behoove me Portland Trailblazers, all
Yeah.
in. Give me that blank check.
Oh.
I'm going to take the Blazers over and make sure they stay here in Portland, Oregon, but then also just grow them to a different level and height. I think you can't be remiss to see everything that happened with the Seattle Supersonics. You
Hmm.
definitely cannot have that happen here in Portland, and I think that's a big piece. And I'd love to be a part of a group or the leader, if I could,
Yep.
to make sure that stays here. If I had that blank check,
Yeah. I mean, Portland and just Oregon in general is such a sports town, and so
I
and
mean, you
that's
got
a
it. You got Nike.
and
I hate to say it, Adidas. You got Under Armour. Like you got all these
great.
major Intel. It breeds sports here in this city. I mean, you got the MLS team, you got the NWS Portland Thorns, you got the new WNBA team that's been just given a open franchise. So a lot of
Yep.
exciting things here. I think it'd be the NBA would behoove itself to even allow or even let it even be a thought for to be able to move this team and not have it continue to blossom and grow with the right ownership group.
Well, that's why we need you to come in and come make this thing happen. So
Hey man, this is where the no free lunch
no
SPV
free
comes
lunch.
together now.
I like this. I did want to say one thing though, just because I always like to add a technical angle to it, which is, and I hope that with this next wave of what's going on the policy side on bills being passed within crypto,
Hmm.
that the next that one things that crypto could potentially do is the tokenization of these type of assets, so that imagine if a fan could actually feel like they had ownership into their team, right? And
Hmm.
so and the same, and that's the third layer of the internet that crypto really provides, is the ownership layer. And so I wouldn't be surprised. The thing that I would be most excited about is, once we start to have clarity on a lot of the regulatory environment around crypto, that the next sale that happens, maybe they can take 10% of that ownership and tokenize it and allow fans to actually become part owners in the business as well too.
So
Uh,
let's touch a little bit on that because I believe there's a team that's already like that to some extent. It's not necessarily from a crypto perspective, but I think in the new age it should be. As I agree with you that. But you look at the Green Bay Packers; they have a
yep,
majority owner and controller of them, but their team is ultimately owned by their fans based on that paper being held. And it's what Class B shares, for lack of better words, because they're not voting shares, but that's how you're envisioning and saying, hey, again, we take the Warriors or whoever it may be, that 10% we're going to roll out to our fans and it's
yep,
tokenized via crypto and you get no voting rights, but you truthfully own a piece of this team. And do you potentially get a distribution as well?
yeah. I think it'd be cool. I'm around like fan tokens,
Mm-hmm.
revenue sharing on IP rights,
Yeah.
uh, digital membership tokens that could happen with different perks. And then, as an SPV, like you could then have, on-chain rights for different LPs. And, it's still trying to get finalized and approved in the league. And I think that that's going to take some time. But I do believe that that would be a very great way for all leagues to kind of level the playing field and let people feel like they have some sort of ownership.
No, I love it, man. I'm excited for the future of where sports can grow and get to the everyday person, but let alone just the explosion of sports just in general and ownership around it. So, Chris,
Yeah.
man, I thank you. Always having
No,
a
likewise.
pleasure to
Always a
have you on
pleasure.
No Free Lunch, and I look
No
forward to
free
our
lunch.
next conversation, boss.
Let's do it, man. We're on a world tour. Let's go.
Yes, sir.
It's time for the Confidently Curious question, where we ask questions that are one step ahead, sponsored by T. Rowe Price, where they believe that asking better questions can lead to better outcomes. So my Confident Curious question of the day is, what are you getting when you buy stock in a company? A, partial ownership of a company. B, a discount on whatever it makes. Or C, income for life. That's an interesting question, and I like it, because I love stocks and I love investing in things. Ultimately, the answer is A, partial ownership of that company. In other words, it's a share of that company. And how many shares do you want to buy? That's our Confidently Curious question for the week. Thanks to our sponsors, T. Rowe Price, for modeling the power of better questions in their approach to making better investment decisions. T. Rowe Price proudly sponsors No Free Lunch. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the podcast participants and do not necessarily reflect those of T. Rowe Price. Their sponsorship supports the platform and does not imply endorsement of specific content or perspectives. That's our show. Make sure you like, comment, or subscribe to No Free Lunch.